I asked you all to share with me your projects and portfolios, and today we're going to look over some of those, and I'll try to give some of my feedback and critique them to help you improve your projects. And even if your project isn't in this video, hopefully you can get some ideas from the projects as well as the critiques that I give. So this first one we have here looks like it's sort of a movie website. So it looks like at the top here we have some information about Top Gun Maverick, and if I scroll down, it looks like we have different categories. This all looks super good. It looks very professional, which is awesome. Looks like we have different scores here, so I can tell that this is probably pulling from like Rotten Tomatoes or something like that. And it just seems to be working really well. Looks like we can play the trailer. I'm not going to do that, but we can. If I click on action movies, okay, it looks like it brings us to a page about action movies. We also have some tabs. So we have trending, top rated, upcoming. So design-wise, this all looks super good. This is a very well-made, polished website. I can just tell by sort of playing around with it. One small piece of feedback I would give is that these transitions, when I click between the different tabs, sort of flash some like gray on the screen, or yeah, so it looks like it's flashing like a splash screen, but it only shows up for like a tenth of a second. So one trick that I like to use, if I know that there's some amount of loading that has to happen, but it's not going to take all of that much time, what I do is I make the splash screen take longer than it actually should. So even though the loading happens in say 0.1 seconds, you can actually just make an artificial amount of time it takes to load, which I know sounds bad from a user experience perspective, but it actually makes the experience better. So it's more natural to see this loading screen for like half a second or a second, rather than it just jumping there and having this weird flash. Otherwise, you could also just remove the splash screen altogether and to just go from one page to the other. That would work as well. But one thing I would just do is try to get rid of that quick flash on the screen because it's a little bit jarring to the eye. Let's see, we also have this drop down. I like this a lot. I like the way that it sort of doesn't just go vertically, it sort of goes horizontally too. It makes it easier to just sort of parse all of this. We also have search, so I'm curious what this, if this is actually like a working search bar. So let's type in, let's say Minions, and let's see, we get a bunch of Minion movies. Why are there so many Minion movies? Is this a thing? Have they just been making more and more Minion movies? Well, anyways, the search seems to work. It also looked like it was actually like updating as I was typing. That's pretty cool. So I'm actually kind of curious how this is working. I would assume maybe you've downloaded all of the movies when I first went to this webpage, and then you can use search to do that much quicker than having to make a request each time. Regardless, that's working pretty well. And overall, this is an excellent project. It's super well polished. Great work on this one. I don't have too much feedback to give, but overall, just amazing job. Okay, so this next one is a portfolio, and I'm actually going to refresh the screen so you can see that there's a little bit of an animation as it comes on screen. That's a super nice touch. I like that a lot. I also really like the way that this text is sort of overlapping with the image just a little bit. You don't usually want to have all of your text over an image just because it can become hard to see. Some images it's fine, but a lot of times it's hard to read the text. But this sort of feeling of it just slightly overlapping, just a really cool aesthetic that I like a lot. Then let's see, we have a link to projects. Let's see, that just scrolls down here to the project section. And then we have contact as well as GitHub, LinkedIn, and I'm not really sure what this is. I'm assuming maybe email, but this icon to me doesn't mean a whole lot. So maybe that's something to play with. Maybe have some tool tips when you hover over these or something to tell me what they all are. Then it says you are a front-end developer, programmer, and web designer. Okay, so that's awesome. I like this image a lot too. I'm not sure if this is an image you took or if it's just some kind of stock photo, but it looks nice regardless. Then we have this learn more, which is just sort of constantly bouncing up and down. I think that looks nice. So let's click on this. We get this about page and we have a resume and contact me and some information. I'm curious, is this the same as here? Okay, so here we have projects. Down here we get a resume, so it is a little bit different. And overall, I think this once again looks pretty good. Let's keep scrolling. So we have skills. It looks like React is sort of like highlighted and I can mouse over all of these. Honestly, I'm not sure what this B one is. Or are these clickable? Okay, so if you click on these, it changes. Okay, so that's the Bootstrap logo, I guess. So one thing I would say is instead of making these be clickable, just make the highlighting change as you hover. So I would just not have anything by default sort of enlarged. And then as the mouse hovers over these, I would enlarge them to show what they are. Otherwise, it's not very natural to think to click on these. And if I was like a recruiter or somebody just non-technical and I don't recognize all of these logos, it would be a little bit annoying to have to click on each and every one. So that's just a small thing I would work on doing. Next, we have some projects. This is great. I like that you have links to the GitHub and the live site for each one. So if you are working on a portfolio, that's super important to both link to the code as well as link to the live site. And these all look like pretty good projects to me. I guess we can click on one. So let's click on this furniture store live site. Okay, and yeah, it looks like we have a furniture store and it looks very well made, so nice job with this. I'm not going to go through all of the projects, but overall it looks pretty good. And then we have another contact down here. I think there might be just like too many contact me buttons on this page. It feels like you're asking me to contact you like every time I scroll anywhere, like every single one of these sort of sections has a contact button. I think that might just be a little bit overkill. Then you have the contact down here at the bottom as well. This is fine, but I think the sort of visual layout of this contact form isn't nearly as clean as the rest of the website. So I would maybe work on cleaning this up a little bit. It kind of looks like you took some contact form that was on some older website and just stuck it in here. And it just doesn't look nearly as good as the rest of the website. So that's one thing I would maybe work on, is just trying to clean this up a little bit and look a little bit less like a default contact form. But otherwise, I think this is another great website. We also have some tabs up here. These seem to just go to these different sections, which is all good. So yeah, overall, great job. Again, I think this is a great portfolio. And if you are somebody looking to make a portfolio, this is a great one to use as an example. Okay, so next we have another portfolio. I like that loading screen you had at the beginning. One small thing I would say is that I had some trouble while I was recording this, where it would get stuck on the loading screen and I had to refresh the page. So maybe look into that. It might have just been an issue on my end though, so maybe not too big of an issue. And then I noticed that this isn't going all the way to the edge of my screen, so I have some white space on the edge. Maybe that's because I'm using a fairly large monitor, but again, something to work on. Make sure that there's no white space around it. It just sort of looks like it's a video with an old aspect ratio or something like that. And then let's see, so we have hello and your name, web developer and web designer. I like the way that you have this text up here, and I really like this like flashing hello, where it's sort of like a neon light. That's a super cool effect. The side here sort of cuts off where it's just like black, and then it goes to this image, and it needs to fade a little bit, I feel like, because this image feels like it's supposed to sort of fade to black, but I can see very clearly where the image ends. So maybe that's something to try to work on. But regardless, I think this sort of top hero section looks pretty good. Let's scroll down. We have an About Me section. It looks like I can download your resume, which of course is good. And then we have technical skills. So we have CSS, Node, JavaScript, Sass, Vue, Next, React, MySQL, Mongo, and PS and AI. I guess that's Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator. So one thing I would say about this is you have like every other one highlighted in blue, which looks sort of cool aesthetically, but from an information hierarchy perspective, it was a little bit confusing to me at first, because I was trying to figure out why some of these are highlighted in blue and some aren't. Are these more important? Something like that. Are these connected in some way? And ultimately, I sort of came to the conclusion that it was just a visual choice, but because they visually look different, it causes me to think that there's some association there that there isn't. So personally, while it looks cool, I would maybe go away from the highlighting of every other one. And then we have some projects. So it looks like there are 12 different projects here. I like this little hover effect you have where they grow a little bit. Simple, but it looks nice. And they also have a bit of a glow around each one, which also looks nice. Let's click on one of these, and it looks like it just sort of gets bigger, and we have a GitHub link up here at the top right. And then I guess this is a link to the actual website where you can view it. So I think this is fine, but I also think it could be improved. So maybe try to move these links somewhere more central. So if I'm just looking at this page here, I don't know just by looking at this that there's going to be a way to see the code and to see the live website. And even once I click on this, it's not super clear. I have to really look around the website to find these different links. So I would maybe put them right below this image so that it's super clear. Click on these two buttons to see the live site or to see the GitHub. I also wouldn't include this actual link visually. Instead, just have a button and the text of the button says what this link goes to. Okay, so let's keep scrolling and we have a contact section. So with this contact section, it feels like these buttons are sort of far apart from each other. Also, I would generally speaking just put your phone number and your email rather than making them buttons. The reason I say this is personally, I find it super annoying when I click on an email button and it opens like my email application on my computer. I don't use that application usually, so it just sort of annoys me. But maybe that's just a me thing, so it is, of course, up to you. And then at the bottom, we have some links. So I would assume these go back up to different parts of the website. Yeah, they do. Although it doesn't seem like they are all actually working. So I would maybe look into that. And these ones on the right, I'm not even really sure what they are for. I don't know what therm is supposed to mean. And privacy, it looks like it doesn't go to a privacy policy. So that doesn't make a ton of sense to me either. But overall, I think this is another pretty clean and polished website. Just try to clean up a few of these little things like the white bars on the side for larger monitors, and you'll be in a great place. Okay, so next we have an application called Travel Companion. Looks like we have a way to toggle dark and light mode, so that is nice. And then we have a way to explore places. So let's say Seattle, Washington, see what happens. So we get a map. This is in fact Seattle, so this is downtown Seattle. And it looks like we are loading just a bunch of restaurants and I guess hotels and attractions around Seattle. And yeah, so we can do restaurants, hotels, or attractions. So that makes sense. A few things here. So first of all, with the map over here, it's a little bit hard to see everything because there are so many restaurants here and each one of these sort of rectangles takes up so much space. So they're overlapping each other. So maybe what I would do is just have something small to indicate that there's a restaurant on the screen. And then once I hover over that small thing, have it sort of pop up. One website you could look to for inspiration would be Zillow. So on Zillow, when you search for homes in an area, it's just going to be little circles. But then when you hover over one, it shows the home a little bit bigger and then you can click into it. So that's something I would recommend looking into. And then over here, this is just a really long scroll. It's not even clear to me what the ordering is. So why was this restaurant all the way at the top, whereas some other restaurant was lower down? So maybe try to work on that, either have a sorting option or maybe have multiple pages, something of that nature. Because as a user, when I see some super long scroll bar, I'm sort of likely to just not scroll at all. And then with each of these, they seem like they're just sort of cluttered a little bit, not super cluttered, but just that it could be improved a little bit. So for example, we have all of these certificates of excellence. And for one, I'm not really sure what this is. So maybe there needs to be some like information tooltip here to tell me what this means. But then also, because these are all the same, maybe it could just say Certificate of Excellence 2014 to 2020 rather than having each of these individually. I would also like a way to click into these reviews, although maybe I would just have to click onto TripAdvisor to do that. So that is fine if you want to leave it like that, but you could even just have this be a link to TripAdvisor. So if you click on these reviews, you could open TripAdvisor in a new tab. Yep, so this overall I think looks pretty good. Let's toggle this. Okay, so dark mode does also work with the sidebar and all of this, which is great. There are a few pieces of text on here that are sort of hard to read. So for example, this white font on top of the pink gradient is pretty hard to see because there's not a lot of contrast. The same is true for these blue links at the bottom here. There's just not much contrast there, so it's sort of hard to read. But overall, I think this is a great project. If you're one of those people who spends a lot of time sort of just thinking about what is a project I should make, this is a great example of it doesn't need to be anything groundbreaking. Yes, this information exists somewhere else on the internet as well, but this is a great way to show a potential recruiter or employer that you are competent in building websites. It doesn't really matter what the website is, even if nobody's ever going to go to this website. It's a great way for this person to showcase their skills. Okay, so next we have this portfolio website. We had a nice animation when the screen first came up, so that's pretty nice. I like the way that worked. These little bubbles are cool as well, with different sort of technologies that you seem to be working with, as well as software engineer. So yeah, great job with that. It would be cool if these bubbles sort of like floated around a little bit, but regardless, they look pretty good. Then you have an image of yourself in the middle. I don't know how I feel about this. On one hand, it's fine, but on the other, it feels like it's taking up a lot of space when maybe there could be some other information there. Also, the image itself is a fine image, but it looks like the Photoshop isn't great. So I can sort of see some edges where you've cut out the background. So maybe try to clean that up a little bit. But anyways, scrolling down, looks like we have, I know that good apps means good business. So full stack developer, front end developer, and back end developer. Now, this does feel just a little bit redundant to me because you say you're a full stack developer, then front end and back end, but a full stack developer is essentially just a front end and back end developer. So I'm not too sure what exactly you mean by that. But anyways, scrolling down, we have creative portfolio section, web app, desktop app, mobile app, APIs, and all. Okay, so it looks like we can click on different sections. And I like this animation where it sort of comes onto the screen. So great job with that. One thing I would say is some of these are larger than others, which looks a little bit awkward to me. I would make them all the same uniform size. But overall, I think this is pretty good. I like the way that when I hover, I can clearly see the GitHub link as well as the live link. So great job with that. And overall, I think this is a good portfolio section. And as we continue, we have skills and experience. So this is sort of resume-like. One thing I would say here is this is a lot of skills and it's just taking up a lot of space and no one's going to take the time to read each and every one of these. So maybe try to find a way to organize them. So maybe front-end technologies, back-end technologies, and so on and so forth. Also, some of these images look pretty squished. So for example, the Unity logo is squished in a lot. So I would maybe try to play with that a little bit to get the aspect ratios all figured out. And then we have some hard-earned certificates. One thing I would say here is that I am noticing you don't have a front-end expert certificate. So if you do want to earn one of those, make sure to check the link in the description. But otherwise, in all seriousness, this looks good. One thing I would say though is maybe try to make this a little bit more compact. I have to scroll a lot to get through this section. And realistically, I'm probably not going to stop to look at every single one, even though each one of them is hard-earned, as you say. Maybe there's just a better way to show what these certificates are. So maybe just like the skills, finding a way to group them. But anyways, as we continue, we have some contact. So take a coffee and chat with me. And we have an email and a phone number. Now, one thing I would say here is it's not super clear to me why I would take a coffee and chat with you. That's not to say that you're not interesting, but it doesn't tell me who the target audience is very well. So for instance, would I want to chat with you to hire you as a freelancer? Is that something you're interested in? Or are you open to full-time positions? Or are you just open to chatting with people that are like-minded and interesting? So are you trying to sell your skills? Are you just trying to network and meet new people? Or are you trying to get a job in some company? But overall, once again, super clean website. I'm just super impressed with most of these websites at this point, but this is another very well-made portfolio. Okay, so next we have another portfolio. So we have some text on the screen. I'm not going to read all of this right now, but we have some text explaining who this person is. One thing I would say about this is it feels like a lot of text at once that all just sort of gets pushed at you right when you get to this website. So it's a little bit uninviting, if that makes sense. So maybe there's a way to show just some of this and incrementally show more of it as somebody's reading, or maybe just make it a little bit more concise, because overall this is just a lot to look at. I do like the way that some of these have some colors when you highlight them, although I'm not sure what the purpose of the different colors are. So for example, Next.js gets this odd dark gray. Maybe that's a color as part of their logo, but it just doesn't really work well with the black or dark background that you have. So maybe play with that, but I do think that this like little highlighting thing you have is nice. But anyways, moving on, we have selected projects and we have 4 different projects. I would maybe try to fit this in a way to where they all fit on the screen at once so that I can see all 4 at the same time without having to scroll past them. But I do really like the way you have this laid out. I like these GIFs or however you've made these little videos of the websites. This is a great way to show what these projects are. And then we have some information below them. And I also really like how you are super upfront about what the stack is. So if I'm a recruiter, this is going to be super helpful to me to quickly understand what technology it is that you know. And then let's see. So we have this little icon up here at the top. I'm not sure what this icon is. Maybe I'm just ignorant and it's some very common icon, but I'm not sure what that icon is for. So that to me is a little bit confusing. And I'm also not sure how to get to the website. Okay, so yeah, it looks like I just click on it and this brings me to the live website. I would also add a link to the GitHub and be clear about which one is which, because I wasn't sure when I clicked on that if I would get the GitHub or if I would get the live website or a page on this website about this particular project. But anyways, I really like the way you have this laid out. And then we have contact, email, Twitter, GitHub, and LinkedIn. I've said this before, but I don't love the email links just because I would prefer to be able to copy and paste the email wherever I want to use it, but it is fine to have it like this if you want. Overall, great job again with this portfolio. It's simple, but it gets the job done really well. And now, if you found this video helpful, make sure to go check out this video here where I review some of your resumes. And with that said, I'll see you in the next video.